Hey, nerds! It's Geeks of Cascadia. Geeks of Cascadia. Geeks of Cascadia. Exclusive tabletop game podcast for the Pacific Northwest. All levels of gamers. Analog gaming. Tabletop news. Dungeons and Dragons and magic. Stupid, mindless bad.
There will definitely be some. That's probably our best. That's our best feature.
Hey geeks, Blue Samurai here. I'm with
Rebeculous.
And I'm still Paul.
And it's episode 54.
54?
Yes, it is right after Dragonflight.
And we are exhausted.
Yes, had a great time.
Especially me.
Yes.
Played a lot of games, did a lot of interviews. Paul, I think you did the same thing. It was
Exactly.
great.
Yeah.
I did 3. I participated in 3.
Thank you for coming for 3, Rebecca.
Yeah. Thank you for coming on the last
I had
2
to go
hours.
see. I had to go see Weird Al on Saturday.
That's true.
I had to go see.
Come on.
That's a nerdy thing. It's a white nerdy thing.
Yeah, I guess so.
Good.
So
Good
that's
one.
because you interviewed Weird Al.
Yeah. Did I not tell you that? Yeah. I haven't
right,
uploaded
next
it to our.
episode.
Where does he go for his perms?
It's natural.
No, really?
Yeah.
No.
I know.
All over or just his head?
Didn't ask that.
Okay.
Thought that would be a little invasive.
Well, we had we did have a great time. We
We did.
a lot of interviews of game designers, game developers. I haven't quite figured out if we call them developers. Designers.
Different people prefer different things.
Yeah.
I don't know where that line is, so I try to ask them before we talk to them.
Yeah, and we're going to try to slow roll these out maybe once an
Every
episode.
3 months.
Yeah. We had David Gerard, which was our big one.
Yeah.
Thank you, David.
Thank you,
coming on the
David.
show.
That's a
Appreciate
fun
that.
guy. He's like a
Yeah.
mushroom.
He
He's
is.
a fun guy. I liked meeting him.
Yeah. And of course, Playtest Northwest. Nicole, thank you.
Thank
for,
you.
coming on. In
And
fact,
everybody from Playtest Northwest.
yes. In fact, are we gonna? Is that the one we're going to do today? Is Nicole's?
We're going to do Nicole's interview, yeah.
All right. Sounds good.
Plus, we're also going to do Matthew Carver,
Oh, okay.
who is also from Playtest Northwest.
All right. Well, in the meantime, what about the news? What about con news?
Con news, oh my goodness. Let's see what's going on here. In the news, RenCon has a website this year. It's amazing.
Okay.
And that's going to be in Renton. It's Renton City Comic Con, and it's RentonCityComicCon.com. Boy, it's really hard to say. It's September 7th and 8th in Renton, Washington, at the Renton Technical College. They've got a bunch of special guests. I'm going to buzz through some of them. They're artists, cosplayers, tech, and science guests. I'm Jen Cohn, not Con, Stephen Smith, Sean Morse, Nick Ketman, Murray Grisiel, Ryan Wells, Alia Matthews, Niles Wilson, Richard Boyd, and many, many more. Up next, we have Rose City Comic Con, which of course is in Portland, the Rose City. That is September 13th through 15th.
Is that its nickname? I thought it was like the Bridge City.
No, it's the Rose City.
Is it?
Yeah.
I know nothing.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That's at the Oregon Convention Center in Portland, Oregon. And, of course, they've got a ton of awesome stuff, including 5-time Grammy winner Weird Al Yankovic.
Woohoo!
Yeah, so that's going to be super cool.
My friend.
I would totally recommend you go through that. A little bit of sad news. Snake River Phantom Con, or Fandom Con, a little bit confusing, is canceled.
Oh.
So Dateline, March 20th, 2019, in the EastIdahoNews.com. Pocatello Snake River Fandom Con has provided East Idaho with a full weekend of nerdy mirth and merriment for the past 2 years.
Love mirth.
But a statement went up on the convention's website and Facebook page Monday, announcing the con's cancellation due to serious health issues affecting its owner, which is terrible.
Oh,
Someone else tried to pick it up, that just kind of fell through. So
cons are hard to make.
cons are not easy.
Get well, dude. Or do that.
Yes. Also, a tiny little thing called PAX is happening in Seattle at the convention center and various other places. Let's see. The 4-day pass is sold out. You might be able to get a pass for Friday, and you can certainly get a pass for Monday. Saturday and Sunday, you're not going.
Right.
Or you could just sneak in, like in the movie theaters in the old days. You sneak in.
I don't think the enforcers are going to. Have you been to PAX?
Right.
The enforcers are not going to let
Well,
that
what if
happen.
you get there on Friday and then go in the bathroom and sleep.
Just stay there until
Yes.
Saturday morning when the con opens.
You know what I think
That's a
would be
great
cool?
idea. Nobody will be in the bathrooms.
Let's try it. Let's podcast that experience.
We should.
From the bathroom?
Let's do that.
Me too.
Yeah,
Well,
let's do that.
that would
And
be
Or we
the
can go in
time
the
I've been in
ceiling.
And it's also not like PAX has the day printed on the badge, and enforcers everywhere.
Well, we can just take a marker.
Oh yes, yes, we're totally going to Ocean's 11 this thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be great, and that's really what's going on for con news right now.
Does that mean I'm
Okay.
Shirley MacLaine? Oh, that's old Ocean's 11. Sorry.
Yes, that's old Ocean's 11.
Who is the female? In
Julia
the...
Roberts.
Oh, well, okay.
Well, the good news.
I get confused with her all the time.
Even though
Yes,
there's not a lot of cons after about PAX, I mean, there's just
There's a
not
lot of pros.
there's stuff
there's
going
the
on,
big
but I'm
one.
saving it.
There's the big one. We always got to schlep OrcaCon.
OrcaCon, yes. OrcaCon is coming up in January. I don't know the dates because I didn't write them down.
Oh wow!
Well,
Tell you what, why don't you start talking about OrcaCon? I'll come up with the dates.
OrcaCon is a wonderful game convention in January at the Bellevue Hilton.
January 10th through the 13th. To
10th
be
through the
exact.
13th. So the dates change every year, but my brain doesn't change every year. I have the same brain. Tabletop Game Convention, super exclusive, super inclusive. We got fun food trucks, and we're going to have an interview with the executive director of OrcaCon coming up here very soon on the podcast because we just recorded that at Dragonflight.
That's right.
And speaking of Dragonflight, in 2020 they're going to have another one. So get your badges, stand in line.
Wow.
It's been 1 day since
That's some
Dragonflight.
advance notice,
Yes,
y'all.
that's true. I already got
Yeah,
mine.
364 days. To...
Oh, I forgot to get mine.
Yeah, mine.
Oh well.
Oh well. So, what about tabletop game news?
Wait, are we
What?
going to do the beer thing? We did that for a couple of episodes and then it
We
died?
Not
do
your
it
thing, but go ahead.
sometimes.
Well, it should be. Like
I don't know what I have. I just
What Steve has
I just copied-
is a Sump Coffee Stout.
just coffee.
Yes, it's coffee, so it's not alcoholic at
I
all.
forgot what I have. I have the porter. Do you remember what
Yeah.
that was?
I don't. I didn't even look at it. So
have the
so
porter
what Steve's got is a
from
10.5% ABV.
Okay, if you knew this guy, this is severe, and I think we should show footage of him after
My
he
DM.
finishes
It
it.
is
My
from
DM.
Perennial Artisan Ales of St. Louis, Missouri.
All right.
60 IBUs.
Don't know what that means.
Me either.
Okay. It's got 60 of them though.
Yes.
And you're drinking the same thing.
I'm drinking the same thing. That's how I know what Steve's
I
drinking.
forgot what I'm drinking, so I feel
That
kinda
looks like
foolish.
coffee.
Looks like
This is
foam.
coffee and that's beer. You can do both. Not together, though.
Well, they're together
right.
because that's what we're drinking.
Yes.
Yeah, sort of.
Okay, game news.
All right, game news.
So
Let's see
excited.
what we have here.
We got a lot.
You should be. I have a game that comes from your homeland,
Oh.
and it's
Thank
Lake
you.
Stevens?
Lake Stevens. Yeah, I was gonna say. All right. Woo! Lake Stevens.
no,
all
this
right.
look cute. You know how I just stop on cute things.
Yes, of course.
Hippo boar rancher. Have you heard of that? Have you heard of a
no.
hippo boar?
I've heard of
Have you ever
hippos.
seen
I
a
bet they're
hippo boar?
delicious.
They're super cute, and they probably are delicious too. So this is on Kickstarter. It's from
gonna Google that.
I can't pronounce the game. Otusan Land. It's a Japanese. Otusan? Anyway, they're out of Vancouver, Washington. This thing's about half funded. There's 3 weeks left. It's a farming simulation game with a colorful cast of characters, obviously hippo boars. It's currently in development for release later this year in Japan. It stars the hippo boar, or in Japanese, Kaibano. Did I say that right?
Kaibano. Okay.
Yeah.
It's like
Anyway,
Bono.
I guess it's like their parent group mascot. I don't know who that is. So the main guy is this dark elf named Logan Lansdale, and he's kind of a good guy, kind of a bad guy, and he's a debt collector. And someone couldn't pay their debts, so they gave him this deed to their ranch, and it's a rundown ranch. And right when he gets there, all the hippo bears are escaping because the gates all crumbled and everything. So he gets help from this young were-panther named Eve, and together they go on adventures and quests to improve the facilities and build a hippo boar farming empire.
Wow,
that's-
this sounds more like a cartoon than
And
a
like,
game.
wait a minute. There's a drow
I know.
and his panther, kind of like Dritz,
Hey,
but
weird.
not
Yeah.
Dritz because they don't want to get sued.
Exactly. Yeah, sure.
Okay, but you know
Why
what?
not?
Go with it.
That
Go
works,
with
it'll
it.
be
I
fine.
like
The
it.
only other
I
thing
like
I
it.
wrote down for that was that
Okay.
the hippo boars say borp.
Borp.
That's what they say.
That's
Okay.
Yeah.
So
When I
that's
go
kinda
to the
cute.
zoo, that's what they sound like. They say borp.
Do you go to the zoo?
I do.
Often.
Yes.
This other game caught my eye. Zephyr from from Seattle. It is a tactical role-playing game. It's a new tabletop RPG because there's not too many of those out there, so we need another one. It takes place on Earth in the 1930s, but instead of all the industrialization and whatnot that happened, then it's all about magic and mystical stuff. And they're on the brink of war, and basically adventurers wield machine guns and magical items as they seek out adventure, mystery, and great fortune. And you can be an elite soldier or a powerful mage or a cosmically attuned spiritist. Very similar to the other RPGs. Had a cool look to it, though. And yeah, so there's that. I found this one that was kind of nifty. I don't know. It's called 1,200 Words. And it's out of Bellingham by this chap named Taylor Smith. And it is an illustrated auto-bio collection of 200-word analog RPGs, and they're all about mental health.
Huh.
And it's kind of interesting.
Interesting.
It comes with 5 different stories to start. They're each 200 words long, and it really just kind of talked a lot about the art, the beautiful art. It didn't actually kind of talk about how you get into playing these short mental health RPGs. I'm not sure what that's about. And
Interesting.
we can all use a little mental health.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
All right. So this one, let's see. Before I get to Polly's contribution, "Cover Your Kingdom" by Brent Beck, out of Grandpa Beck's Games. That is from Seattle, also. A wonderfully ruthless party game from the creators of Cover Your Assets, Skull King, and The Bears and the Bees. I'm touching my screen.
Touching your
screen,
Touching your screen.
So Cover Your Kingdom is an absurdly cutthroat, take this and that and the other set collection party game. Quick to pick up, hard to put down, and constantly amusing. Just looks like a fun bunch of cards. You get irregular creatures and regular creatures and wild creatures and tokens, and I see no dice. So
Boo.
there's that. No, I like the card. I like the do what it says on the card games. Those
Me
are
too.
fun.
I'm kidding.
Anyway, so that's cool. I can never tell if you're kidding. Sometimes I think you're kidding all the time. I'm not sure. Okay, and then last but not least, still Paul brought this to my attention. He saw it this past weekend at, where were we? Dragonflight?
Dragonflight.
1,000-Year Beard.
I wanted to interview the game designer, but I just kept forgetting, and we kept getting more interviews piled on. And it's like, okay, well, I'm tired now. Maybe tomorrow.
It looks like a super cute game.
It does.
It's a little card game about, D.D. O'Brien, I should say the guy's name. And it's a little card game he wrote about growing big beards, where players are fantasy dwarves competing to grow the longest beard.
Awesome.
I know.
Okay. All right.
You should play this game. You should try and play this game.
Are you trying to make fun of my
Well,
black
just every November.
growing-
We can grow some
Every
like
November
here
comes
and like
around.
here.
Look, they have face cards.
I like that. That's good.
Face cards, grooming cards, silver cards. You could use some grooming cards. And you build the beard with these cards. It's super cute. Two dwarven cheat sheets and 2 fuzz tracker sets.
Nice.
Buddy. And let's see. I
You're
believe
being mean,
he's.
but
Yeah,
I don't know.
there's more. There's things you get if you pledge a certain amount, and they're super cute.
Yeah.
And
It
everything,
looks like it's
but
fully funded, but there's a couple
Yes.
weeks left.
I got a little pin. Got a
Yeah,
little pin with a
cool.
big red beard on it. No one will know what the hell that is except me.
Cool.
That's me. That's it. That's my segment.
Okay.
We're out.
I do have 3 things though I do want to plug
We're
because
not
it's
out.
important, because there's a lot of miniatures gamers out there, and I know a lot of people like Warhammer 40K. So new Space Marines are available to pre-order from Games Workshop. There's a new Space Marine Codex making its rounds for you 40K players, and as usual, when there's a new Codex release, the next couple of waves are also for that faction. As such, there are new Marines that you can get, so check it out on Games Workshop. Fantasy Flight Previews, Imperial Shore Troopers for Star Wars Legion. Shore Troopers, not Stormtroopers. These are Shore Troopers.
Like lifeguards.
They go on the shore.
It's like slow jogging
Question mark?
and
In their
and
red armor.
Yeah, that's right.
Red shorts.
That's right.
With
if
the
you-
one buxom female
Yes.
storm.
Yes, if you want to replay the whole Baywatch thing, you can with Shore Troopers. I guess.
Is there
I
a
don't know.
is there a Baywatch RPG?
We should make one.
We should
There
make
should
one.
be.
We should make
There
one.
should be.
Also available on another set of miniatures is House Tully Cavaliers for A Song of Fire and Ice, and yeah, check it out.
Is
cool.
Edmure in there?
Actually, it's
The
a Song
Is
of
he a
Ice and Fire.
cavalier?
I don't know.
And
but I
we're the
remember-
bravest of the
I
Teletubbies.
will read this to you. House Stark has long made allies with the other houses around them. It's just as they do.
it's
So
just
when
what they
a
do.
dire, you know what? It doesn't matter. Check them
It
out.
looks
It looks
fun.
really cool. Because it is cool.
It is cool.
Yeah,
Whoever says Game of Thrones ain't cool
it's
can
totally
just
cool.
talk to me.
The last episode kind of made me a little upset.
Oh,
though.
yes. Let's not go down that road again.
No.
Are you done with your news?
I don't think we spent.
I
enough
am.
time
You
on
have-
that.
you have breaking news?
I have two questions for you.
Yes, sir.
Do you like Dungeons and Dragons?
I do.
Look at your shirt. Do you like Rick and Morty?
I like Rick and Morty.
You know, I heard through a tiny device that there's going to be
Tiny
a
device.
Dungeons and Dragons.
How small was this device, Paul?
It's about this big, about the size of an iPhone.
Yes.
And it said there's going to be a Dungeons and Dragons versus Rick and Morty box set.
Ooh.
Did you know about that?
Did not know.
Oh, one of us that likes Rick and Morty should buy it and do an unboxing.
We might have to do that.
That's going to be in November.
Okay. I'm gonna use all that
It comes with
awesome podcast.
It
money
comes
that
with
I've been
a
getting.
rule book. It comes with dice. It comes with an adventure, of course, because otherwise there's no adventure. So yeah,
Do you know what else is coming sooner than that?
Descent to Avernus.
Baldur's Gate Descent into Avernus.
Okay.
So check out your game store. Ask for it from your local game store.
Get
You wanna support
the
them.
alt cover because
Yeah,
oh my god, it is so cool.
Are
Definitely.
you going to be our DM for that?
We don't have time to play 3 adventures.
Sure, we do. We have
Yeah,
all
we
the time
can. We
in the
can
No, we
world.
rotate
don't.
it. You can rotate it,
Good.
or you can be the DM. Rebeculous.
No.
I think you should try. I think you should try to do it. Hey, Baldur's Gate Descent into Avernus. Check it out. I think it's September 17th. Go to your local game store because you do want to support them.
Yes.
Also, coming up, this is new on D&D Beyond, so there'll also be a hardcover, is Eberron Rising from the Last War. Right, so check it out. Explore the lens of Eberron in this campaign. It's a source book, an additional source book to the Wayfinder's Guide of Eberron. So if you like that,
That's
You
the alt
better check
cover
it
I
out.
was thinking of.
was it?
I've been looking at too much stuff on the internet.
Yeah, I think you probably.
Yeah.
Oh well, that's okay.
Still, alt covers,
I
cool.
still love you. I think that's about it. So should we go into the interview? Well, before we go in the interview, just let everyone know out there, if you're like, hey, when am I going to hear this awesome game designer? We're going to roll it out. And also, some of you are thinking, hey, I want to listen to that Car Wars Death by Death.
Oh.
So that will come, except for the fact it takes time.
It does take
takes a lot of
Car
time.
Wars episode is a lot more work.
Yes, it is a lot more work. I haven't even started. It usually takes me a while because there's a whole bunch of different files I have to put together, and I have to find the corresponding sound effects
Yes.
to go with it, and we'll
share
have
them with
it.
me.
That's
That's
right.
not what you're supposed to tell them. I haven't even started it. You're supposed to build up.
It
this
was
nice
2 days ago.
I know it's 2 days. Yeah, holy cow, man! It's working. Plus, I was really sad that Jesse lost. I was
Jesse,
really rooting
oh,
for
Jesse.
but, no.
Picture of Jesse right here.
Yes.
You can
gonna
put it
that
right
up?
here.
Do you have a
Yes.
picture of Jesse?
I can find a picture of
Okay,
Jesse.
well,
I follow him on
we'll put him on there.
Instagram.
Can you make it round and put it right here?
Yes.
wasn't
Boy, if
there.
Jesse were on our podcast, that'd be
Which,
excellent.
by the way, Jesse, if you haven't done this, and any other person that listens to your podcast, please, can you please rate us? Please.
And share us, tell your friends.
Yeah, and subscribe to us on YouTube as well, because that we would like to have more subscriptions.
Yes, please.
on
Review
YouTube.
us on Facebook. Any one of those things would be great.
Are
Right.
we begging for?
Yes.
Totally begging.
We're begging.
Totally.
wanted-
I mean, you could look. If you hate us, you can write how much we
That's-
suck, but give us 5 stars.
Yes.
Hate's a little strong.
5 stars, really bad review.
Don't hate us.
That's fine.
We're all about peace and love.
Don't do 1 star and great review. That is not good for us.
We're talking to you, Kyle.
Yes, we are.
I'm not. I don't know who. You
All right. So, is that it? Should we go in our interview?
Is
Let's
this-
do it.
Talk to
is this
Nicole?
I would like
from
to apologize for talking so much during this upcoming interview.
Okay.
Okay.
With that, let's see what Nicole has to say.
Yes.
Hey, geeks. So, we're here with a very special guest. We're here with Nicole with Playtest Northwest. How's it going, Nicole?
Oh, it's pretty good.
Now, we're really glad to have you here. You know, we've had Playtest Northwest here on our podcast before. But just a refresher. Tell us what Playtest Northwest is.
Yeah, so Playtest Northwest is an organization of local indie game designers. We host a bunch of events throughout the year at game stores and conventions, and we're kind of built around the idea of kind of building a playtest community. When we're at the monthly events that are at cafes and stores, they tend to be a little bit more casual. Game designers are working on their games, playing each other's games. And then conventions like Dragonflight are great because we basically have more public playtesting where, gamers and people who are, buy and purchase games get to play prototype games kind of that have been developed throughout the year.
Right. The rank and file.
Yeah, exactly. A nice little cycle of game
Yes.
development, or, well, at least the playtesting cycle of it.
Right. So how did this all come about? Just a bunch of game designers went, hey, we need to form a group to look out for one another? Or-
Yeah, pretty much.
much?
So my partner Luke and I were in the process of making a game, and we basically were running into the same issue that a lot of other designers were, and those other designers and small companies ended up being Daily Magic Games and Thing 12 Games, and there are a number of other small indie publishers that do self-publishing and stuff. And in 2015, they basically started Playtest Northwest as an organization that went to different conventions. We had our first event ever at the ETX in 2015, which was also the first time that convention happened, and so
Right.
that was kind of the first debut of it. The intention of the group kind of came out of the fact that a lot of us would play games with friends and family. We get to a point where we couldn't, we weren't know if they were being too nice or they just,
Right.
a lot of times they don't want to play your game anymore, and we needed kind of an audience that would be kind of willing and able to play test our games and give good feedback.
Right, and it goes beyond just playtesting too, because there's advice that can be given from because of the designers that are there, people that went through the process.
Yeah.
It's nice to have that. So if I were an up and coming game designer, and I had this idea, and I called you or contacted you, what services could you help me with, or what would you tell me to do?
Right. So the
Probably
process.
don't contact us.
Yeah,
right?
I was gonna say, I'm very bad with phone
Right.
calls. I kind of like swear off phone calls if I can. But most of our kind of organizational stuff for the events happen online, and so I always tell people, the first thing you can do is join our meetup group. So if you go to meetup.com/Playtest Northwest, so Playtest NW, you don't have to spell it out or anything. That's where all of our events are listed. It's very easy to just kind of sign up, RSVP, and then attend an event and kind of meet other designers, kind of see how the format of the event works. You can definitely answer or ask questions that you have about game design and kind of maybe prototyping for the first time. All of our designers are very approachable and are very excited to also kind of share some of their mistakes or some of
Right.
the ways that they had kind of made their game. And after that, if you're, I always recommend people that they attend the events first, maybe play other people's games, kind of meet some designers before just bringing their game. And then as you kind of
Right.
get comfortable and you kind of understand like the process, you can go to our website, playtestnorthwest.com, and there's a registration page for designers, and basically they can register their prototype, and so that makes it easier for us on the kind of admin side to either promote their game on social media when we're at events like this, and we can also make table signs and stuff for them as well. And those are basically the two things to get started as a designer. And then after that, it's pretty much just kind of attend the meetup events and sign up for the conventions when they go out. Our email newsletter is also very important. That's where all of our demo signups go out to. So they're also on the contact page on our website. You can sign up for the newsletter there.
What I really like is what you guys do at events like Dragonflight is you take over a bunch of tables and you designate them with yellow tablecloths, and then that's the Playtest Northwest area. We did this, I think, last Dragonflight. We played a game where the floor was lava.
Oh,
And
yes.
we played
That
like
was
two
great.
or three great games
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
I was hoping would get made so we could buy them. I really like the lava game, but I think it's super fun just to go around, talk to the makers, and then play their game and give some feedback.
Yeah, the
Super
convention
fun.
the convention events are definitely our kind of larger events that we kind of build towards. So between Dragonflight and then in a couple weeks we're going to be at PAX West. Those are our two largest events of the year. So at Dragonflight, for those of you who are not actually physically here, we have 8 tables. They're kind of broken up into 2-hour time blocks. And so basically every 2 hours you're kind of looking at different games getting switched out. some of the games at Dragonflight we try to focus on. We know the crowd here, and we know that they like strategy games
Yeah.
and are not afraid of some of the longer games. And so sometimes we'll make those 2-hour blocks, like 4-hour blocks.
Okay.
And leave enough time for basically the games that are, over an hour long to
Yeah.
kind of breathe a little bit.
Yeah,
Right.
cool.
But yeah, so for Dragonflight, we have, we start at like 10 a.m. and we go until 8 p.m. and we have that every 2-hour cycle. And how we kind of encourage people to come and play test games that aren't out yet, when they have all of these other, nice shiny RPGs and things to do, is we also do a playtester raffle. And so if you play test games and fill out feedback forms and then bring them back up to the staff, we get you raffle tickets to win board game prizes.
Cool.
Yeah, and a lot of those
Okay.
prizes it's really awesome. Again, kind of going back to that whole cycle, a lot of those board games are donated from designers who had their games published.
Awesome.
So we get a lot of donations from Daily Magic Games, from Junk Spirit Games, and Thing 12. As well, and just a lot of other, some of the self-publishers will also kind of donate, copies here and there. And it's just this really nice cycle where you can kind of
great.
see what, the end product essentially of this game after these people have play tested for years.
Yeah.
And what's kind of nice is sometimes you can point to the game and you're like, oh, well, this designer is actually here demoing their new
Yeah,
game that they're
that's
working
neat.
on. Yeah.
So is there a fee that members do, or I know you're a nonprofit, but how do you keep running?
Gotcha. So it's been kind of a little bit of an informal organization over the last few years. And actually, we're not technically a nonprofit yet. We started the fundraising earlier this year to kind of start the process with the nonprofit kind of status. And so before then, we had like paid membership, and there was a little bit more of like kind of a tiered membership to get in on some of the conventions. And we kind of changed that because I didn't necessarily want that to be a barrier, and I kind of wanted to switch more to like a fundraising kind of focus. And
Okay.
so, now that we've gotten the funds to kind of start the process of getting towards nonprofit, paying for all the fees and other stuff involved, other paperwork and fun stuff like that involved, the next step is setting up the board and then, doing all the bylaws and all that kind of fun paperwork and stuff. And, beyond that, I think it's, we want to focus on fundraising, but I also want to focus on like other potential paid events. We've noticed over the last few years that, our assistance with game designers kind of ends after the playtesting phase. And we kind of want to, everyone has questions about like, Kickstarter or how to approach publishers and how to
Right.
build sell sheets. And so we want to do events that are maybe paid or have, tickets or something involved. So people can kind of learn those skills, and we can have designers themselves teach other designers that are kind of new, how to go about that.
Well, and hopefully someone who's successful and use your organization will, pay for it, right? Pay back the organization that helped them out.
Yeah.
Because you've got folks all over the spectrum, right? You got some pretty successful folks that came through Playtest Northwest, and you got the people that we interviewed.
Just starting out.
Just starting out.
Yeah.
Ones that are just saying, oh, I don't know if I'm going to do a Kickstarter. I'm going to try to go through a publisher first. A lot of hopes and dreams out there. Hopefully they're successful. We've talked to some of the folks that have been successful. David Gerard is one of them.
Yep.
We kind of talked to him from the very beginning, so that was kind of cool watching him.
Yeah.
But so, can you name some of the big successes that maybe some of our listeners and viewers might know that went through Playtest Northwest?
Definitely. So you mentioned David Gerard, who's at Junk Spirit Games. We have an interesting history because back, oh my God, it wasn't that long ago. It was probably only 5 years ago. I was reviewing games, and that's kind of how I got into kind of this board game community. And I had seen, I think he had Junk King at the time was one of the first games that they had self-published. And then they went and did Crows. They now have By Order of the Queen.
Yep.
Battle of the Bards just came out, and they have a big banner for it out there. And they have a couple other games they're working on. People are very familiar with the Daily Magic Games games. So anything in the Valeria universe. They also have another kind of world. They have another couple worlds they're building up. The Amaranth world that has the Wizard's Tower and Thieves' Den that they're building, and then there's more of their Egypt kind of side of it too. Thing 12 is also another great success. We have all of their dice games, so Dice of Crowns, Dice of Pirates. I think they're testing and about to kickstart Dice of Dragons, and they're well known there. We definitely have a number of other games that are number of other number of other designers that have kind of self-published a game that may not be as widely known, but they were definitely successful on Kickstarter.
Right.
So, oh gosh, I'm forgetting all of their names, of course, right now. But
okay.
we've had, you mentioned the lava game, and we had another couple that was making a game that it kind of, there was some similarities there, but there was like a dragon hopping kind of tag based game that they had successfully funded. I know Blue Heron Games, he's not here with us this year, but he had put out about 3 different games too. There was the Cats and Curiosity, Cats and Cuddles, I believe, and then he had oh my gosh, what is that? I forget. He made a number of other games. But I'm sorry, I can't remember all of them now. And I guess I'll save the last shout out to myself and Luke, who started with our food truck themed game and did that for a couple years, and then that ended up being Food Truck Champion, which is published by Daily Magic.
Oh, cool. Well, congratulations on that.
Yeah, thank you. And I mean, it's just there's I could continue going on for forever and ever. And even a 1,000-Year Beard, who is here, is currently on Kickstarter and is approaching his funding goal. And so it's constant. There's just constantly people that are connected here that end up being successes. Another one actually that might be a little bit more relevant as far as like kind of people who know him outside of the Pacific Northwest is Flat Out Games. Tested their point salad game at a couple of our events over the last few years, and they ended up getting picked. That game ended up getting picked up by AEG and was like a very big hit at Gen Con this year.
Wow, cool.
And it's so weird to think that AEG sharing this game all over the place, people playing it at the game night before Gen Con, and being like, that came out of Seattle. It started here, and so we are very, very happy to have such a great community of people who are indie designers that end up being successes, but they also kind of come back and kind of help play test other people's games and help give them advice on doing the same kind of journey.
It must be nice to see that someone, because a lot of these people we talk to, they, if you're thinking about developing a game, it's really hard, by the way, and you better keep your day job, because a lot of them have to keep their day job because there's something called health insurance you have to do and a mortgage.
Yeah.
And it's so nice to someone who's struggling that somehow, it doesn't happen all the time, but maybe, they make it and they get a little more cash. Life is a little easier for them, but and they're off on a new journey. So it's nice to see that. And you helped out on that. So it's pretty cool.
And it's I love seeing kind of where people go to, because some people will go the route of making sell sheets and just kind of exclusively just like pitching their games to different publishers, and so they get their game. They're more known as a designer, and then they get published, by a bunch of different people. And then there's some that, like Thing 12 Games, where it's like, nope, we're gonna self-publish all of our games, or we're also signing games, and they become a publishing house, and so they kind of go the route of a lot of the other kind of Kickstarter-based publishers that you see kind of grow, like I think it's like Colossal, or even Daily Magic too, who just kind of exclusively do Kickstarter-based funding and then for their games. Yeah. And and then there's some people. It's in rarer occasions, but we Luke and I had tested and developed Food Truck Champion for oh my god, it was like 4 years plus the year of preparing for Kickstarter, and then the year of Daily Magic did all of the work with the Kickstarter and fulfillment and all of that. But after that, both Luke and I ended up working as contractors at the it's now Funko Games, but we're now kind of producers on games professionally, which I didn't. If you would have asked me 2 years ago, I never would have thought that was possible. Yeah. But now you're starting to see, the growth of the game industry in general, and if you've gone through and done all the hard work of actually, building a community or testing games or building your own game, we actually have a good set of skills that if, a lot of these companies end up kind of growing and getting bigger and needing either designers or producers or people who have actually gone through that process, you already have that knowledge and experience. Right. Yeah. And so again, it's not please still keep day jobs, right?
Right.
They're not everywhere, but it's a really interesting kind of it's really interesting to see kind of the industry grow and then those opportunities also grow.
So how many? Okay. How many members do you have? And we were talking about this. Are part of your group?
Yeah. Let's see. So it, as we were walking over here, it kind of varies. I mean, we definitely have a lot of people who are signed up. We have about maybe 600 people on the meetup group, and we have about 1,300 on the email newsletter. And like you mentioned, this is kind of a side gig for a lot of people. A lot of them are managing families and jobs and other commitments and stuff. And so we don't have necessarily a lot of people who are full time into it, but we are accessible enough that I feel like people can come back into the events kind of whenever they are ready and whenever they're ready to kind of push their game. So I would say we probably have about 100 kind of active members that kind of will go to events here and there, and obviously will definitely come back out for conventions and things like that. But as we start going towards the nonprofit route, as we start having, more events that are kind of targeted towards helping people with even making the game or pitching their game, I think that the activity will also grow as well.
Right. What about the biggest cost of some of these games is artists, right? I mean, that is probably the most expensive part.
Yeah.
So is there, do you guys help them with that at all? Is there artists that are part of your group maybe looking for a job with a game designer?
Right.
How does that work?
Right. Well, we don't. We haven't had as many kind of like artists kind of in the community. I've definitely met like a handful at events, and definitely kind of ask, tell them like, hey, play the game, and then make sure to leave your card with the designer. And a lot of times I encourage designers at especially these conventions like Emerald City Comic Con that we're at, or PAX West that have artist booths. I was like, please just go around, collect cards, ask for quotes. I know that is also very intimidating because art is one of the most expensive parts of gaming as well, of building a game. And so like at ETX earlier this year, I grabbed a few other artists that I had worked with before. One that is from our group that's also a game designer, Dylan Mangini. He designed Mephisto. It was successful on Kickstarter, but he also was the graphic designer on it as well.
Right.
And so that whole panel was focused on kind of clearing away some of the confusion on how to actually reach out to artists and what you're kind of looking for, and to kind of set certain expectations. Because with artists and working with getting art for your game, you kind of have to think about like the business side of things, like budget. You have to think about your time as well, because those are usually the two kind of things that will most likely cause you issues while you're trying to get art for your game. Is like, I hear constantly where it's like, oh, the art is late, or it was not really, I didn't really have a directive schedule for them, and so I just said like, oh, well, here's some money and then get it to me whenever, which doesn't really work. A lot of times you need to have kind of like hard set deadlines. And then some people just don't understand like how much it'll cost too. And another big thing is I always tell people, don't go to art too early. If you're still prototyping your game, there's still things changing about it. You may get art for certain components that may become irrelevant later, and then you just wasted a lot of money and time. And so leave art for last if you can. If you're doing like a Kickstarter or something like that, I always tell people, you can get like a really nice box image, let's say, for an artist that would make it, a really nice splash page on your Kickstarter, or would be a really good shareable image for social media. But beyond that, I wouldn't necessarily go too far unless you already have the funds to do so.
And you gotta remember that you gotta have the agreement that you own the art.
Yeah.
If you're developing the game, make sure you get that ownership of the art.
Yeah. There's definitely we briefly went over that. There's like templated like art contracts and things that you can do, but definitely make sure you get some kind of rights to actually publish the work on the game, because that could get sticky too.
It's you can definitely tell. We've been with Paul and I and Rebecca. We have interviewed a lot of game designers, and one thing we have noticed is that if you're a game designer that is also a good artist, you
that helps a lot.
A huge edge. A lot of people. Unfortunately, I only know how to draw stick figures, and I'm not good at game design, so it's never going to happen for me.
Well, you can just play test, right?
Right.
We do have people that will just come in who just like play testing and picking apart games.
Cool.
Yeah.
And I actually enjoy doing that a lot too, because then I don't have to do any of the hard work. I can be like, that's not working. This feels unbalanced.
Right.
I feel like there's something that could be more fun here. Okay, that's your job to deal with, designer. I wet my hands of this. And
That's the other thing. I think the benefit of going through Playtest Northwest is the fact that you've got professionals in there that look at the mechanics, the math behind these games, which is very important because it can break your game. And, and that's good that you can do that, because you're right. If you go to friends, they're going to be nice to you. They just want to be nice to you.
Or a person like me, it's like, my reaction is, well, that just wasn't fun, and I can't tell you why.
yeah.
It's like,
Right.
Yeah, so I mean, it definitely takes some training, I guess, and some skill building. And I think what's also advantageous of having a large community is you start noticing people have really good skills in certain areas. Like me, balance and math, not my thing, not at all. I can definitely tell you if something feels like kind of unfair, and especially if it keeps happening. It's it's easy to point out. I love giving critiques on like themes and how they're connected to mechanics and how the kind of and also the story about it.
Okay. I wouldn't even think about that. That's
Yeah,
interesting.
well,
Okay.
my background is in animation, and we had to take a lot of like storytelling classes.
Okay.
We had to do a lot of like production management and those kinds of interesting kind of avenues, and it's interesting how much of that has actually been applied to board games and has been kind of helpful. And yeah, you're right. A lot of designers don't necessarily think about that, and you can usually see that in their games. Some people are really good about the mechanics of it, but then I've met people who are like, I don't understand theme. I don't really know how to add it. I just kind of put generic fantasy here, and then we'll see what happens.
Right.
And I mean, depending on your route, like if you're pitching it to a publisher, the publisher can also just take it and be like, well, we got a theme for it. It's fine. You don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
But if you're self-publishing, that might be a little bit more of an issue, and you might need additional help with that.
and then sometimes someone will make a great game, but then it comes to writing the rules, and they're not great at writing the rules out. It's like, okay, you need someone else to do that for. If you need someone to do that for you, just admit that to yourself and get
Like
that
that
help.
baseball game.
Like that, bottom of the ninth.
Ooh, such an attractive game. It was such an attractive game, and we just couldn't figure it out.
Oh no! Yeah, yeah. It's funny. At my current job, I actually have to write a lot of rules, and I work with copy editors and proofreaders and other editors, and I have a whole new respect for people who write rule books.
Yeah.
And I'm very happy now that I have that experience, that I can give kind of like some basic editing feedback on people's rules. And then I often encourage people to just look at other games, and if there's a good rule book, like people who are known for good rules, like Stonemaier Games, look at those and see what they do, and then just try to mimic that. I mean, I think that's kind of what's so great about this industry too, is it's so accessible as far as like, starting as an indie designer and then becoming a successful designer. There's a lot of work involved, and it may take years, but it's still very accessible to do. And you might as well use the resources available that have already, that people have already figured out to kind of help yourself, and not try and just reinvent the wheel.
That's a very good point. Yeah, we're in the middle of the podcast here. But anyway, so I've always if you could move just this. Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't realize the camera was on you. There.
So anyway, hey, we're in a convention, so it's great. We get. So that's one thing I didn't think about is the rules, and you might have a great game, but if nobody understands it, they're not going to be able to play it. I know. I'm just kind of a side thing. I DM my group, and what I do is and they hate it. I don't know if they hate the feedback. It's the feedback part. I give them feedback for it.
We
It's a lot of
get
feedback.
It's like homework.
a lot of
It's
homework
great.
and lots of forms to fill
Not
out.
a lot of homework, but I like to give feedback, but to correct myself. And then when the adventure's over, because usually they're like, 10-page adventures, campaigns, I'll just like, Rebecca's good at grammar, so I just want to, I'll give it to her and she makes it bleed. But I make the corrections, and now it sounds logical.
Yes.
So I never publish it, but now people
You should
can
publish it.
understand it. All right. I'll
Yeah,
go through
yeah,
Playtest
there, do
Northwest.
it. Get some more feedback.
There
Do
you
some
go.
more redlining on it. Yeah.
Do you have any advice for an up-and-coming gamer or game designer?
Yeah, so I mean, I would say, a lot of these games, while they're wildly successful, and I, mentioned the companies that are involved and the people involved, couldn't have gotten where they were without like the community itself. And so you want to try and, no matter where you are, Pacific Northwest, like obviously you can join our group and join plenty of other groups, but I ran into a couple people who came from like Montana and other states that are like, I don't have that network. How do I get involved? And it's with that, you just kind of start building it yourself. And, we originally, before Playtest Northwest, I tried doing like an Unpub Mini kind of thing and just set something up at a local game store. And then you just get people to come in and, if you put up posters, you get on the event calendar, you do all this other kind of like social media sharing and consistently do events where you kind of get new people, then you can start building your own community yourself. And so I really encourage people to kind of focus on the community aspect of building games, because you really do need other people's like input and feedback, and then ideally you want to do the same for them, and then that's a much more positive way to kind of get started and a way to kind of progress yourself in your game.
Right. So I guess before we sign off, people should know how to get a hold of you, the socials, Twitter, Facebook, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, of course. So you can find us at Playtest Northwest on Twitter and Facebook as well, facebook.com/Playtest Northwest. And then if you want to go to Meetup and find all of our events, it's meetup.com/Playtest Northwest. And there goes a whole bunch of our designers off that way. So I'm going to go follow them later.
Okay, good. You guys got anything?
That's great.
Yeah.
I had a question, but I feel like it got answered.
Oh,
through
please.
all the- so if someone like me who knows ground zero, just had a loose idea. So are you stage one, or do we need to kind of have pieces made or whatever, or cards loosely written out? Because it seems like it seems like people who already kind of have a thing to bring to you to show you. What you're looking for.
Right. So most of the events are kind of set up for playtesting, and so most of those events are, you're right, people bringing what they've already made. And I mean, we tell people we don't need anything nice. Like if it's on the back of playing cards, a lot of people just get Magic Lands and then put stickers on it and then write on it, and that's exactly what we're looking for. But if you still have an idea and you're not really sure how that's formed, I would still go to those events and then ask some of the other designers.
Sounds like there's all types of contacts and things like, hey, how do you get these pieces printed?
Yeah,
how do you do that?
Yeah, and I should also give a shout out. There's another group that's organized on Facebook. It's the Seattle Area Tabletop Designers, and they have a weekly meetup that's downtown at Via 6. It's really great because it's all designers basically, and they are encouraging people who just have ideas or don't know how to get started.
Cool.
And oftentimes they're playtesting games, but then they're also there to kind of like give more advice to, if you just have pieces and you can lay out pieces and you're like, I don't know what to do with this. I have this idea. I have this direction I want to go. They're really good about asking you questions that kind of will help you answer what it is you're trying to do with your game, and then we'll hopefully kind of give you the direction to build it.
Cool.
Cool.
That's awesome, Nicole. Thank
Yeah,
you so
thank you all
much
so
for
much.
everything that you do. You're making dreams come true, and for others, you're giving them a dose of reality that they have longer to go.
Yeah.
But you're helping them out. So thanks a lot, and hopefully we'll see you again in the future. You're going to go to PAX West, I'm assuming.
Oh yeah, we'll be there.
Any other conventions coming up?
Let's see, PAX West. We're also going to be at Geek Girl Con. Geek Girl Con, we're trying something new this year where we're going to have some playtesting tables, but we also pitched a workshop where you can, the idea is you'll have a mini bag of components, and we're going to have kind of people there to kind of like help you design your own game out of those components.
Cool.
That's awesome. Geek Girl Con's a family con, and so we wanted to kind of get game designers started early. So we're going to hopefully see families and kids and give them some components and see how they make games.
All right.
Very cool.
Thanks a lot, Nicole.
Yeah, thank you all so much.
Right.
Don't forget to thank our cameo appearances.
Yes, so many cameo appearances.
Yeah, well, that's okay. People coming up. We're in the middle of a con, and that happens.
It happens.
So
Yeah, you got the most kind of reserved kind of corner area that you could, but there's no place
Right.
safe at a convention.
Well, what I really liked is BJ Shea actually walked across our camera because he's probably intimidated by how awesome our podcast is doing.
Oh yeah, gotta
Because
watch out.
we're
Yeah.
direct competition.
Yes,
with
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks a lot. Take care.
Well, that was cool, wasn't it? She was awesome. She was very well spoken.
She
And
really has stuff together.
again, I felt bad for all the interrupting that I did.
Yeah,
Talking to her.
I was trying to nudge you under the table so you'd be quiet.
She answered all my questions before I even asked them.
Yeah.
It was great. She covered everything.
Well, it just tells you how hard it is to be a game designer. Really.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
I had
I
no
mean, there's
idea.
a lot of work. You can't just half-ass being a game designer.
I kind of thought you could. I kind of thought if you had an idea and a little bit.
No,
of,
no, you cannot.
context,
Well,
but yeah.
one thing
So,
I learned from all of this is keep your day job,
Yes.
right?
What
if
if,
you're
what if
listening,
people work
huh?
at night? What if not everyone works during the day?
Keep your night job.
Keep your main job.
Keep the job that pays the bills, that gives you health insurance, feeds you, and puts the roof over your head.
Or else be super healthy and live in a warm climate with lots of
Yes.
coconuts.
Yes.
Things.
What?
Fish
You
to
need
catch.
food.
So those of
Fish.
you listening to us on some desert island
Yes.
and
Through a
somehow
coconut.
having internet access,
The professor maybe made you a radio so you could listen to our podcast.
yes, that's true. Oh, by the way, I want to put a shout out to anyone, the person listening in Bonnie Lake, who is listening to our podcast right now. I can tell because there's 10 listens from Bonnie Lake. I'm pretty sure that there's only one person, but thank you for listening to our podcast.
Thank you.
Can you please rate us?
Please rate
5
us.
stars. That'd be awesome on whatever platform you do.
Hey, people in Spain listen to us.
People
Yeah,
in
they
Spain.
do. There are people in Spain. Canada, we get a lot of Canada listeners too.
The
And Puyallup.
plains in
That
Spain
one person in
fall
Puyallup is
mainly
listening. to us.
in the rain.
Hey, what else do we got?
We have another interview that we got at
do.
a recent convention called Dragonflight. Matthew Craver.
Oh yeah,
He's
Matthew,
he's working
yeah.
on a game called Balance of Essence. Sounds really
Right.
cool.
It does sound cool. By the way, Matthew, since we're doing this for you, it'd be really great if you could rate us.
Thanks,
Huh,
Matt.
buddy?
Thanks, Matt.
Huh? By the way, remember, when you become famous, you got to remember about us.
It's true. Send us free games, stuff like that.
If we ever get around to do a Patreon and you become famous, throw a couple bones our way, will you?
Or money.
Yeah, or money. Okay, let's hear what Matt has to say.
Yes.
Hey, geeks. I am with...
I am still Paul at Dragonflight.
I'm Doug.
Also at Dragonflight.
Yes, and we are with
Dragonflight.
Matt.
That's me.
So this is our little segment where we have little game designers who are doing out and sharing their wares. And we're here, of course, at Dragonflight and Playtest Northwest, and we have Matt here. Matt, tell us about your game.
Yeah, so my game is called Balance of Essence. It's a 2-player card game, similar to Magic or Hearthstone. When I was working on the game, I set out to solve 2 big issues that I see with current card games. The first of which is, in most of these games, the player who goes first is just determined by random chance,
Okay.
but it can have a huge effect on the game, right?
Yes.
So in my game, the first turn of the game is played simultaneously and in secret by both players.
Okay.
And the way that
Okay.
it works is you can play as many cards as you want from your hand. You can play your entire hand if you want.
Okay.
When both players are done playing cards, you'll reveal what you've played, and the player who spent the least amount of essence, that's the resource in the game, they'll get to go first for the next turn.
Okay.
So
It's a little
So
bit
you're
pokery.
bidding.
yeah, so it's the intent is that it's a sort of mind game sort of thing. So you want to go first because you get to attack with all your units right away, but also you want to build up a really big board and have a whole bunch of stuff out of it. 'Cause that's fun, right? So that there's a balancing act of, well, what do I think my opponent's going to do? What do I want to do? And then number 2 thing that I was trying to solve is resources. So in Magic, as you all know probably, your resources are tied to cards in your deck. So if you draw too many or you don't draw enough, you can have a bad time. Digital games like Hearthstone have tried to streamline that, where you just get 1 mana a turn. There's not really a lot of ways to interact with it. It's kind of boring.
Yeah.
So in my game, the way that it works is the mana that you spend on essence, sorry, it's not mana, it's essence. Get the branding right. The essence that you spend on your turn is what you give to your opponent for them to spend on their turn.
Okay.
So you're constantly passing this essence pool back and forth, and eventually when it runs out, you'll do another one of those planning phases where it's the secret is simultaneous, and you'll determine a new mana total.
Okay.
And you'll go from
Interesting.
there. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. And two-player game, obviously.
Yeah,
just
two-player.
like you said. And where are you in the development process right now of it? And where are all the pieces, cards and anything else?
Right now it's primarily cards. I just printed a custom playmat. The board, you play cards out onto a board. It's a hex circle, and there's 2 lanes. So there's positional aspects to the cards being played out.
Okay.
But yeah, it's primarily cards that get played onto the board, spells that buff them, and then I'm using little tokens to represent like damage and health and attack buffs and things like that. So the design, I'm getting pretty close to what I would say the core mechanics would be, and then it would just be a matter of like adding new factions to the game, adding new cards and keywords, and then hooking up with an artist and getting art, doing some world building. Like I said before we started, I'm terrible at naming things, so like getting a new name, getting better names for all the keywords and all the factions and stuff.
But you're playtesting it here at Dragonflight. Right?
Yes.
Yeah. With Playtest Northwest.
Correct. With
Cool.
Playtest Northwest.
That's
Yeah,
good.
I've done a couple events with them in the past, at Mox in Bellevue, and then some that they've just done here and there. It's been really awesome just to get random people to show up and take a look at your game and give you feedback. Like mostly before this, I was just forcing my friends to test, and they got a little sick of it. So now we're here.
Yes.
How many cards do you have at this particular point in your development?
At this point, there are 100 cards. There's 4 factions, and I have 25 cards per faction. There was a 5th faction, and they're kind of on the chopping block right now because a lot of their mechanics weren't really working, and I decided to just focus on the other ones. But yeah, I actually had the guy that I just did a playtest with. He gave me this really cool idea for a card type of wizards where you'd have spells that either like only do something if you have a wizard on the board, or that do like you could do 1 damage or 3 damage if you have a wizard, or potentially like damage based on your number of wizards. So he gave me a really cool idea for a faction that I could make a faction based on wizards. And
so basically, you've got a 2-player game, but you choose one of 4 factions, right?
So it's a deck building game actually. So the decks that I have right now are pre-made, obviously. So when you build a deck, you take 2 factions, and you can pick any combination of cards within some rules. Like obviously, because you can play as much mana as you want, I have limits to the certain costs of cards. So like there's no cards that cost more than 6. Those are like your legendaries, your like really cool cards. You can only have 6 of those in your deck.
Okay.
So it kind of balances the power level between any 2 people making a deck, and you have to really think like which legendary do I want to have in my deck. So yeah, in theory the game would have the format of a living card game. So you'd buy the game, you'd get the core set, you'd get all the cards for that, and then I could release new factions as an expansion, or 5 new cards for every faction that's in the game as an expansion.
Good idea.
Yeah, because obviously no one's breaking into the collectible card game market as a single dude who tests on the weekends.
So it looks like in your terms of development, you said you've been doing this off and on for about 2 years now.
Yes.
And as you develop this game, you've got 100 cards right now. Do you find it difficult? It's like, oh, I got a new idea, I want to put a new card in there, but you probably want to limit the number of cards, right? I mean, you don't want like a 200 cards, otherwise it starts getting more expensive for the buyer, or maybe it gets unwieldy in terms of the mechanics.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I think where I'm at right now, 25 seems like a pretty good point. There's enough cards that I have roughly 2 sort of like mechanical themes that each faction can have. So when you're building a deck, you could pick, for example, one of the factions has these like defender cards that will protect nearby units from being attacked. And then they have the terribly named Tithe cards, where there's like a religious type theme where
Okay.
you play these cards out. They're worth more than they cost. So you're getting like 5 essence worth of stuff for 4.
Okay.
The downside is that you draw 1 less card
Okay.
while that card is in play as like a tithe.
Yeah.
That's the idea. So you could make, you could take the tithe cards and pair that with something from another faction, or you could take the defender card. So it's going to give people enough options that there's a whole bunch of decks to build around like a couple key mechanics from multiple factions.
So right now you're in the process. You were also talking about how you need to get an artist. I guess that's the next thing.
Yeah.
Hopefully one will show up here to help you out.
Yeah.
And that seems to be the most costly thing when I'm talking to other game designers is the art. But how far away do you think you are from? And I'm assuming you're thinking about kickstarting it, or maybe
yeah, probably.
Okay. So how far away do you think you are at this point?
It's kind of hard to say. I mean, if I really wanted to, I could probably start preparing a Kickstarter in the next couple of months, getting materials together. I think the design is pretty close, and in theory, it would Kickstarter would give me the opportunity to like get some people interested, and then kind of outsource the testing a little bit, where I could say, here's a couple decks for free, like print and play sort of thing. Where people could print, cut their decks out, play the game, test it, give me feedback. That would be pretty useful. But yeah, I mean, it's the sort of thing where I could work on it forever, nitpicking about balance and design. And but at some point you just kind of say, all right, well, it's good enough. It's time to show the whole world.
Are you reaching out to the game design or game producers out there to maybe perhaps go that route instead of a Kickstarter route, or?
I haven't really considered that yet.
Okay.
That would be cool because then I wouldn't have to do any of the work, and they would. But being like, I'm definitely like very passionate about this game, and doing a Kickstarter means you get a little bit more control and you have ownership over the whole thing. So.
All right. So where can we find you? You said Mock's Boarding House. Is you looking at any future cons? Maybe PAX?
I might do PAX. I haven't signed up for that yet because I'm actually going to PAX one of the days. So I'm not really sure if I'll want to also test there. But not really at the point yet where I can plug any Twitter, social media stuff, unfortunately.
Okay.
But I don't know, maybe you can, I'll hit you guys up when you get to that point. And
Okay.
you can make an addendum to the podcast.
If maybe there's some, game company exec that's watching this right now.
yes.
I don't know. I'm sure they are. Yeah, totally. Is there a way to just get a hold of you right now? Just simple email or anything, or do you don't want to?
I don't know if I want to give it. I just have a personal email that maybe I don't want to broadcast to
Okay.
Probably not a
everybody.
good idea.
Well, you can talk to Playtest Northwest. Ask for Matt. There's a couple of Matts, but maybe they ask for Balance of Essence.
Yeah, Balance of Essence. Nicole can hook you up. We'll get this game. We'll get this game out there. You and me.
All right.
All right.
Cool.
Anybody else got any questions or anything like that?
That sounds fun.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll be here 10 to 2 if you guys get a break.
Okay,
You wanna
yeah.
come
All
check
right.
it out?
Cool.
Okay. Well, thanks a lot, Matt. Good luck.
Thank you.
All right.
That was great talking to Matt. It was so awesome for him to come all the way around the tiny hidden area at Dragonflight, and then the back room behind the ballroom. That was very nice. Thanks, Matt. His game sounds fun. It's not very
does.
far along, but it sounds
does.
super fun.
Yeah. You put a lot of work into it.
Yeah.
Seems like.
Yes.
Good luck, man. I mean,
Yeah.
I hope you make it big. I mean, it's always nice to. It's always cool to kind of see these people we interview and then they kind of make it big.
Yeah.
Is this how Milton Bradley started?
That's what we guess.
Exactly.
Milton Bradley was on our podcast,
It was, yeah.
and then they put out a game.
He did a Kickstarter.
He did a Kickstarter, and then boom.
That's right.
Yes.
And Mr. Hasbro did the same.
Mr. Hasbro, yes,
And Mattel.
yes,
Yeah.
Mr. Mattel.
So, I think that's it for the show, right?
I think that's about it. We're gonna play some Dungeons and Dragons now.
We are. And oh, by the way, we've got some pretty cool, awesome D&D episodes coming up for you. We've got an episode coming up about downtime,
Yes.
which is going to be very interesting. I highly encourage you, if you're a DM to use downtime. If you're a player, ask your DM to include downtime in between adventures.
Downtime's fun.
And sidekicks. We're going to do some information about sidekicks.
Yeah.
Kicks.
Sidekick rules.
Yeah.
Sidekicks.
Sidekicks.
Psychics.
Holy
Sidekicks.
Have another drink.
Rules.
Yeah, I guess so. Okay. Well, I'm talking crazy. So
You are.
I think that's enough for me.
Do you have any advice or trivia questions or anything?
Always choke up with 2 strikes.
I do. I always like to tell people, embrace the nerd, and I hope you make that saving throw.